Hey, I'm Victor Lucas. This is Johnny Millennium, and we are Film Fury. We just got out of another superhero movie. I say this all the time.
It's every week. It's every week.
This is X-Men Dark Phoenix, and it stars Sophie Turner in the titular role. We've also got Nicholas Hoult in there. We've got Michael Fassbender.
All the usual X-Men that we love.
We've got a whole cast. Tay
Yeah, all of
Sheridan as Cyclops, a guy that does a pretty damn good job as Nightcrawler. I don't know what his name, but he's pretty
fantastic.
damn good.
Really good Nightcrawler.
Did you enjoy this movie?
Oh, I gotta say, going into this movie, I kind of went in with no expectations.
Yes.
I also thought that this movie was never getting released because it is kind of the last Fox movie before they were bought out by Marvel. So this kind of movie was in limbo for a little bit, and then all of a sudden it got released. It's a very quiet release, and I can kind of see why. This is actually not a bad movie. It's a dark movie, and it's very gritty, and it's very strange. Let's talk about this. Well, it's strange, this movie.
It is a strange movie, and it has to deal with a lot of psychological tension.
Definitely.
It has to deal with the manipulations of Professor Xavier and what his agendas are with the kids that he brings into his school.
He's trying to help them, but is he really helping them?
Exactly. Yeah. And so we kind of dive deep into this because clearly what happens is Phoenix, Jean Grey, becomes a darker persona in this movie and in this very famous story from the comics. And it's written and directed by Simon Kinberg, who has been around the X-Men movies. He's also been around the Star Wars movies as well, but not in a directorial kind of role. So he stepped up to the plate here, and I think he did something very smart.
Oh?
He turned a big story into an accessible movie. He turned a really giant, almost cosmic kind of tale with lots of supernatural and weird overtones into something that we can
relate to through all the characters.
And also one that's heavily populated by a lot of mutants. And I got to tell you, I really enjoy the X-Men movies in general.
Me too.
And I've read some X-Men comics, but I don't know who everybody is. And it's cool to see always in these movies, in the fringes, all kinds of other characters that they allude to. And that exists here.
Right.
But there were still lots of, X-Men characters in action that I didn't even know who they were, and I still enjoyed it.
I kind of like this movie that every X-Men really got a moment to shine.
Yes.
A lot more. Usually they're little cameos, and you see them do one kind of exciting thing. But here they're given a moment to shine, like Nightcrawler, seeing him, the Beast, seeing him jumping around and giving them a lot more screen time, almost making them front runners, which they should be because we love these characters. I love them in the comics books. But this movie was so dark. It was so... I didn't expect to be as disturbed by it as I was.
And emotional.
Emotional.
There's some big scenes in this movie.
There is some which we will not spoil at all.
Yes, and there's a couple things that I really enjoyed about all of this, and one of them was the fact that we've got the X-Men in traditional X costumes that look like they were etched on screen by Frank Quitely, who's one of my favorite comic artists, and they just looked perfect. They look so cool.
This is a very good X-Men film. And I really enjoyed it. I can say that.
It felt like flipping through pages of a comic book. I think that there was a really solid kind of attachment to the source, but it was also measured. And when you stack this up to Avengers Endgame, it doesn't have anywhere near the budget.
Because it's a different style of movie.
Right, and it does make me feel like, when the MCU does get its claws onto this franchise, they can go much bigger and they can show us these X-Tales. But there's stuff in this movie
that I don't think Marvel would do because it's so dark.
Well, it does get dark, a little violent.
I know this sounds weird to say, but intense swearing at times. I was like, we're like, whoa!
Well, it's
can't believe superheroes are swearing.
The precedent has been set, with movies like Logan and previous iterations.
Push things a little bit more, and also some of the action we got to say was incredible with Magneto. That Magneto scene.
Yep.
That was great.
But the thing that makes me the happiest though is that finally Cyclops is pretty damn kick-ass.
He's just taking his thing off the whole time at one point. I was so happy.
He has some kick-ass moments in here.
They all did,
They all did, but Cyclops has always been, and he's been like James Marsden did a good job as the character, but he's always just been like, he's got lights that come out of it.
He kind of walks in the room.
He's dope in this movie. He does a great job.
Storm is fantastic too.
Storm does a solid job.
Phenomenal. Actually being Storm.
Yes.
Doing Storm.
Now we're saying all this, but it's not at the scale of the MCU.
No.
But that didn't bug me.
Did it bug me at
you?
all? No, not at all.
Yeah.
I actually kind of enjoyed this small. It's kind of a small story.
Yes.
That
you can see they made it with a lot less money.
Yes.
right? And
Yeah.
they shot it in Montreal, it looks like,
yeah.
and it's sort of fitting in for New York and other parts of the
But
world.
with all the positive, we're saying there is some negative, and I want to see what you have to say about this.
Yeah.
I didn't like the bad guys at all. I thought they were pretty cheesy, pretty weird.
Yeah.
I didn't understand their motivation. You kind of find that later
Right,
on. You're like,
yeah.
okay, this is your motivation,
Yeah.
okay. And then you're taking we're not spoiling it.
Well,
but like,
I agree
yeah,
with you.
I don't understand what
but
they're doing
that
at the
also
end.
connects to my feeling like I was flipping through pages of a comic book. I get
Yes,
because in
yes.
comic books they don't give you everything, and they sort of leave
aliens that come.
Yes,
you know, sure.
and they leave stuff for the next issues. And what's kind of disheartening about all this is that, if this is to be the last in
I
the
think
Fox
so.
X movies, and it's likely that they have that other one, that sort of horror movie one that's supposed to come, the New Mutants.
Oh, the New Mutants, yeah,
coming
yeah.
out next year. But if this is like the last in the series that has been going on since the very first Bryan Singer movie, it's underwhelming
As a finale,
conclusion.
as a conclusion,
Yes.
yeah. But I didn't really look at it as that. I knew it was coming to the end because
Yeah.
Marvel's taking over now.
Yeah.
And I thought it was a weird way to go. You're definitely right about
right.
that. Like
But-
even to the last scene.
But I also wouldn't mind seeing these actors play these roles
I know,
again.
I know, totally.
With these cool costumes.
Every year,
and,
give me another X-Men movie.
They're,
I love Charles Xavier. He's amazing.
I
He's
think
perfect.
the batting average on the X-Men movies not as good as MCU.
No, but overall, they always.
pretty freaking
I'm
cool.
always happy.
Yeah.
I always walk away and I'm like, I saw an X-Men movie.
Yeah.
But this one, I know this is going to sound really weird, but because I used to read the comics all the time,
Yeah.
this really felt like an X-Men
Yeah.
movie.
It felt like an X-Men comic.
I know.
It did.
Just
yes.
because of all the characters shining, and
Yep.
I think a lot of people are going to go into this and have a good time.
Yeah, and
I
you know,
hope so.
honestly, and that's what's so amazing about X-Men as a comic book franchise, right? Like, these are really trippy characters with trippy powers, and they're kids, and there's like hormones, and
Yeah,
there's
they're
all
just
this.
kids, and
but
yeah.
somehow it's been coalesced quite well cinematically,
Yeah.
and this one I think is like it has DNA of the comic book pages.
Definitely.
And I like the performances of
Me too.
James McAvoy as
He's
Xavier.
always great in everything
Yes,
he
but
does.
I don't know, there
See,
was
the
some
emotion that he was doing there. I know.
Totally, and some
Yeah.
new flourishes between he and Michael Fassbender as
Magneto,
Magneto, and I
yeah.
thought, we've seen them kind of grow on film just the way that we saw
They've had
Ian
their ups
McKellen
and
and Patrick
downs.
Stewart grow
Yeah,
on
exactly,
film.
exactly.
And there's a melancholic kind of feeling when you're watching
Yeah.
this movie because of the story, but also because it's a finale, and it's a weird
There's a little
emotional hook in this whole thing. Yeah,
It's a strange movie. There's a lot of talking, which is okay.
Yes.
But when the action comes, it's really good.
Yeah.
It's a very. I hate to say it's a bit of a downer,
Yep.
but it is a bit of a downer.
It's a bit of a
It's a bit
downer.
of a downer,
Yeah.
yeah. So it's a really weird movie to come out of. You like, I liked it, but man, it made me feel kind of. But it's good.
And it evokes those comics that were out in the 80s,
Well,
man.
keep saying it,
I
'cause
know.
it's so good,
I
yeah.
know. It was
Yeah, yeah.
cool. I recommend it. I think you
I
should go
recommend
see
it.
it.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going to happen after this, but maybe it's okay that this is a
finale.
a finale and saying goodbye. But it's solid, and I think Simon Kinberg. There was a lot of doubt about this guy. I think he built something pretty
I
solid.
thought he
here.
took a chance and did something really strange. It's kind of like a weird '80s movie, and it just did its
Yep.
own thing.
Yep.
It's really off the beaten track for for Marvel movies usually being that here's a bad guy, they defeat them. There's a lot more emotion going on here.
A lot more
There's
depth,
more stuff,
a lot more
depth.
psychological stuff.
Yes,
I agree
definitely.
with you on the aliens, but I still
But
thought there
I
was
know
some
it's not
cool
the end of
stuff.
the world, but
Yeah.
but here's the weird thing: we get to rate it, and I'm not gonna give it a 10 or a 9.
No.
I'm gonna give it an 8 out of 10.
I'm right there with
Absolutely.
you. Exactly an 8 out of 10 from me as well.